The education system in our country is fucked. Unfortunately, nothing is working anymore, and kids are coming out of school less prepared for the real world than ever before. We're going to deep dive what needs to change immediately for the next generation to be able to find success after they leave school. Because as it stands, the next generations coming through this type of schooling system are fucked. You know what I really hated back at school was, and this is the number one thing, was the teachers that didn't want to be there themselves. And I get, obviously, for them, it's a job. It's a paid job. And just like everybody in life, certainly in society nowadays, people hate their jobs. That is just a standard thing that happens. But what's really sad is in a job as being as important as being a teacher, if you hate what you do and you don't enjoy it, you don't put the level of love and attention and energy that you need to put into a job like being a teacher, because you are actively influencing future children's development. And if you hate what you do and you don't put the energy in, those children are just, they're going to see that. And I saw it clear as day. And any teacher that I was very cognizant of the fact that they weren't enjoying what they were doing or what they were teaching, I just switched off, paid no attention to anything. So I might as well have just used that. That was just time wasted. I might as well have used that time at the time probably to play Xbox. But you know what I mean? It was just such a waste of time. And it was something I was really, really aware of, even at school as a kid. And I'm talking primary school all the way through my entire schooling. I just saw that. I don't know what your experience was with teachers like that.
Well, I more noticed it when I had a really good teacher. And I still remember some of them now. You know, Mr. Kinsella for me was a pretty good teacher. Not that that's going to mean anything else to anybody else, but you know, there's names of teachers that really stuck in my memory because I wanted to learn in their classes because they put it in such a way that I was like, oh, I really like another guy. I don't even know if you remember him, Mr. Peon. Anyway, what a name! But like, there's a few that again standout teachers, but I just remember being in the class and be like really excited for it, which at school is already weird. And I was hardly like some A-star student, you know, I was lucky if I got a C. But anyway, but in those classes I did really well. And it's because I learned and I actually gained the value, and I could tell by the preparation that they put in that I actually cared about what they had to say.
We was the same, and I remember seeing a teacher of mine that I had twice in primary school, I think whatever years it was, let's say 3 and 6 or something. And he was the first person that I ever really respected and wanted to listen to outside of our own parents. Even from a young age, Mr. Ellis Boughton, legend, Mr. B. And against this day, I remember him, and this is how impactful these teachers are onto our children's lives. And Aria, my little girl, will be going through school in the next 12 months, 18 months max, and she'll start to be exposed to these teachers. And obviously, I'm going to be aware of it as I'm going through parent-teacher day and looking at, obviously, seeing the teachers and going to the schools that she's going to be going to. And I'm going to be really hard pressed to try and tell my little girl that you're going to need to listen to this woman or man who is teaching this subject, who I know just through looking and speaking to them, they don't care about what they're teaching. But yeah, I've got to try, just because it's the right thing as we're currently set up with the schooling system, I need to try and convince her that it's important and that she needs to listen. And I just can't see myself doing that. I feel like I need to give her the truth about how I would feel with her going through school and now coming out at the end of school in this new modern age that we're living in, where our parents weren't exposed to that with all the technology and all the advancements and phones and AI and everything that's happening. Our parents that wasn't really available to them at the time. The technology was still the same. So for our parents, when we were going through school, was very much get a good grade in all subjects and then go to university or potentially do that. And that was really the path that was drawn out. But now, because of the opportunities that are available, I'm pretty sure that once my little girl grows up, and if she says there's a teacher she doesn't like, I'll tell her. I'll be like, she's an idiot. Don't listen. If you don't pass, whatever, it's not a big deal. Focus your area and your time on something else, and certainly don't invest it into a teacher or a subject that you're not passionate about, that you don't enjoy, and that has a teacher that couldn't give a shit either, because it's just a waste of time and all counts for all parties.
I think they just don't choose the right subjects to learn about as well. And I remember in English, and you're learning about just certain things that you're not interested in. I know they've got to cater to everyone, but there's things that they could put forward that would be a lot more interesting to the general kid that's in the class. That's going to mean that they're a lot more enthusiastic about learning about it, rather than, I can't even think off the top of my head, but Macbeth. What kid's interested in Macbeth? Not many.
Certainly not me.
There's a lot more things going on in, recent history, or not that we shouldn't learn about history, but you should learn history in history. And, if you're learning about English, maybe try and fit the subject to something that's, going to actually interest the kids and they want to learn about, rather than random stuff that they're not.
But this is where the teachers being passionate is massive. It's so important for those teachers to actually care about what they're talking about and put that extra time into actually think about what the child is going to learn and how they're going to learn it, and not just follow a curriculum. And that's why I say the school system is fucked, because there's no leeway. There is a curriculum they need to follow, and it's about 80 years old, and they just need to continue on that path. And they make minor changes to it, yes, but the whole thing just needs to be overhauled. And it's going to take some brave souls to actually start making the switch. But I just think a bit of trialing needs to happen, because I remember, again, like one of my teachers, the passion that he put in, he would go off topic, he'd go off curriculum and do something different, and you'd learn far better because it was a lot more interesting, because it was tailored to you, and it was a lot more unique and one-on-one, and the care and attention was put in. I remember I saw him actually in Sutton on a night out, and I went over and sort of said hello, and I thought there's zero chance that he's going to remember me. None. Like, obviously, I looked up to this guy as a young kid.
Was the Messiah.
Well, just someone who really had a big impact on my school and my time at school, and my childhood, really, which I suppose they wouldn't think about as much, really, because I suppose, good or bad, these teachers are impacting so many children's lives. And for me, obviously, it was such a positive thing, but he obviously teaches, 30 people per class per year. So then if they're teaching multiple classes, that could be like 100 kids a year. And it's obviously been 20 years or so, longer, since I was in year 6. So I was like, there's no way he can remember me. And as soon as he saw me, he was like, bloody hell, you've grown up. And I was like...
You're like, well, it has been a few decades.
Yeah, and I was like, I said, do you remember me? And he was like, Tyler? And I was like, mental. I was like, how do you remember me? He was like, you're one of my favourite students. I was like, it was a little wholesome moment with my teacher, and it was really, really nice. And I said, I can't tell you how nice that is to hear from you, because you had a huge impact on my childhood and you were amazing. And I'm sure that you've probably heard that from other students that have come up to you and seen you outside of school afterwards. But obviously, I'm there, I call him Ellis now instead of Sir. It's a weird thing. You kind of
Is
ask.
He Sir?
I don't know.
I
missed it. No, it's missed it.
That's
missed
it.
about it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
But yeah, obviously for me, you say that, and you've gone from looking up to them as a teacher to then having a beer with them.
Yeah, it's mad. I mean, I remember, see, there's different schooling required for different people, and I get that they have to do more of a broad brush. But I remember one of your friends, like, he ended up going into like education in a very mad way, where he was getting kind of kids that had been expelled, and then they kind of were taught in a very different, more militant way. Yeah, but that works for those kids.
Very good segue. Teaching isn't a one size fits all. There's different types of learning. There's obviously visual learning. There's the physical act of learning, and then obviously like the doing, and there's different ones. And each kid's different. Everybody learns differently. But then obviously the backgrounds of certain children, unfortunately for them, are very, very different. And a friend of mine, he went into teaching challenging behaviours, and he set up his own sort of private school. 12, I think, was the max he could have in the class. But these kids have come from families with drug addictions, single parent households, deaths in the family, jail time in the family, abuse, all this stuff that they've got going on. It's really, really, really sad. But for me, the way I see life and maturity is certainly based around your experiences in life. So these young lads, it's only boys in this class because he can't teach girls without a female present. So it's just lads. And obviously they've been through all of that at such a young age, and it hardens them and it turns them into quite mature and self-reliant young men, even at the age of 13, 14, 15, just like our dad did. His parents got divorced and he had to become the
man of the house.
Not quite the man of the house, but certainly the keeper of the house, who had to do all the washing, the ironing, the cooking, the cleaning, everything, keeping the house ready for when his dad got home from work. Everything was done. And doing those jobs obviously matures him and matures anyone as a person. So then when these kids are going to school and they've had a bad day, and I mean a really bad day with abuse and negligence and all that shit that they've gone through, and then they've got some teacher saying, have you done your homework last night? And it's like, no, I was cooking, cleaning, ironing, looking after my little brothers or sisters, keeping my mom, where there's an issue potentially with drugs, or sorting this out, which was what he was telling me, some of these stories. And you're asking me if I did my fucking times tables? No, I haven't done them. And then it's like, well, you're misbehaving, you're a challenging child. And it's like, you don't have a clue what I'm going through. So they obviously then lash out and there's problems there. So you can see straight away how these situations arise. Anyway, they get kicked out of school and they still need education. And this is where my mate comes in with his school. And on day one, obviously for the class, there's 10, 11, however many of these kids there are, roughly about that. And he just says to them, he was like, look, he said, putting it bluntly, keeping it as it is, he goes, I ain't a dickhead and I'm not going to treat you like one. You're all young adults. We all know why you're here. I'm not a sort of standard teacher that's going to give you homework and talk down to you. I see all of you as men. I see all of you as equals, and I'll treat you like one. If you are disrespectful to me, trust me, I'll be giving it you back in kind. And said, and if you want to, like, even to the point of saying, if you step outside, if you start thinking you're going to be getting in my face, I'll be doing you in, sort of thing. Now,
it was that sort of
ridiculous. Now, as silly as that sounds,
so
saying that to what you would say in class as a 14-year-old, these 14-year-olds have got more life experience and life skills than most 24-year-olds. And so he treats them with respect, and straight away their kids are taken back and go, this guy gets me.
And some of them occasionally, I know you've said, like, give it back a bit, try and like poke the bear and find out that he ain't playing around.
Exactly. But I mean, he's never assaulted anyone.
No, obviously.
Does a lot of jiu-jitsu with them and sort of shows them that, because he's into his martial arts. So he does like jiu-jitsu with them, which there's no pain or striking involved, but he certainly shows them that he ain't messing about. But then obviously from that, he says that also, I'm here to teach you about life. Obviously, there's no point in trying to get you a C in maths and English, but I can teach you about taxes. I can teach you about how to buy a house, how to rent a home, how to improve your credit score, how to be a functioning member of society, how to pay tax, how to figure out bills, how to do balance sheets and start a potential business, and teach him all of that. And he's now been nominated for an award, for a local teaching award, or for some governing body who's really high up, he's had such positive impact and such great reviews from these children and the parents. He's literally turned all their lives around, that he's being recognised for his teaching prowess, which when I think of him as a friend of mine going back to school, what he does now, I'd have thought giving him any role involved with teaching someone else would be lunacy.
Yeah.
But what's actually unfolded is that it's been a perfect fit for him and his demeanour.
Well, this is it, because again, I know who it is as well, but like going back to school, knowing how he was even then, there's similarities even now. And you'd say that, and you think, oh, in education, and you'd be like, no. But then if you were really specific and say education in this and the field he went into, you'd go, actually, you know what, I could see that. And this is like kind of what we're saying. They're trying to just broad brush everyone, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. But there's got to be a way of finding out people's niches, what people are better at, and trying to focus on those rather than just... I mean, I was horrendous at school. You know, I didn't get good grades, and I just didn't click with most of the things that I was doing, because I don't learn like, oh, this is how you do it, now read a book and now remember. And it's like, I just don't remember like that. I need to be actively doing the things to actually have it click in my memory to remember it. And I think, you know, like going back to some of the skills as well, it would be good to have a sort of class which is on about general life skills class or something along those lines. I mean, they're coming up with some right nonsense at the minute now, but yeah, like paying taxes, coming up with like how to pay an energy bill or certain things. And obviously, don't get me wrong, that's hardly in primary school, but you know, when you're getting into the later years of secondary school, I think to set people up with some of these little basic things, I mean, they're more than happy teaching business studies and setting up a business now. You know, I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people to learn how to do the bills and the taxes and the energy and TV licenses and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lad, obviously, who's just started with us, who we've just brought on, and he was doing a business administration apprenticeship. And this is how ridiculous it is. The college tutor came in literally yesterday, and we went through the first piece of work for the course, and he's been made to design a health and safety poster. And now this was day one of seeing the syllabus of what's involved. And I came out of the meeting, and obviously he's 18 at this point now, so it's a bit different. He's not at school, but he's never had he's at the level of being an apprentice. He's got no further education or training other than that, or life or work experience, sorry. And I came out of the meeting and I said, what did you think of that then, after she's offloaded all this crap? And he literally just said, he goes, what a load of rubbish that is. He goes, have I got to do all of that? And I said, I'll make a deal with you. None of what they're teaching you in that business administration course or business studies course is going to give you any head start or any benefit when it comes to learning about business. It's a complete waste of time. So I said, if after 3 months you can demonstrate that you can come off the apprenticeship because you've learned enough about business where I would be happy, then we'll scrap the whole thing and just say it's a crap course and we'll bring you on full time. So there's that then sort of onus on him to also follow through and actually do some work. It's one of the big things, and going back to obviously my friend with their challenging behaviours and his school, is discipline. That's discipline has gone. People aren't willing to do the hard work anymore. They can't be asked, can they?
No. And we're here because we've got friends of our parents that are teachers, and they just say it's just completely lawless. They just say, you know, kids, I mean, I thought, you know, the occasional chair flipping that had happened like in a classroom from one kid that we had in our class was pretty bad. Whereas now it's like teachers are getting accused of like horrendous stuff. I mean, the guy we know, he's like the nicest guy in the world, like a counsellor style teacher, and he's been accused of some stuff, and he went on for months, and then it's all of a sudden now gone, oh no, sorry, I just made it up, like I'm really sorry. And it's like, this guy has gone through like the trenches, and he's only trying to do his best, and he's one of the good ones as well. So then the good teachers leave, and then you're just stuck with teachers that don't really give a shit because they don't care, so they just think whatever. And then the education system gets even worse.
Bring back the cane, I reckon.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately, this is what it needs sometimes, some extreme measures. But teachers, like the police, I suppose, don't have the powers that they need to put the discipline in place for people to actually learn.
Just look at them, just stop oil dickheads.
Yeah.
Sat in the middle of the road with hands glued to the pavement, and they're arresting people that are trying to move them for leaving their vehicle as they're blocking the road, blocking people potentially going to
Ambulances.
hospitals,
Yeah.
people getting to work, emergencies that could be happening, and people are in a rush and they're blocking an entire road, creating all this congestion, all this traffic because Just Stop Oil. And the police are standing by and watching them in the road doing nothing. Then if the second somebody pushes them out of the way, they get arrested. And it's all over the internet. It's fascinating. I don't understand how anyone... Because if I was a police officer, I'd be smacking them around the head with a truncheon. And obviously wouldn't make a very good... Well, I'd make a great police officer, but not for this time. Maybe 30 years ago. But I think it's important, like, when we were kids, and it's only going off experience, I only say this, like, obviously, yes, then to caveat that, there's always the bad egg. There's always people that are going to take it too far. There's obviously the Rodney King beatings in the USA where things were taken too far and it was abuse and brutal and it was violent, and that's not good. But I think for the most part, that discipline was important. We got a 3-strike rule as kids where we misbehaved. We got told one time, pack it in. Second time, don't let me tell you again. I've told you once. You know what's happening on the third time. And then on the third one, you're still like pissing about misbehaving. Just smack round the head. You know, we weren't punched in the face. Obviously, there's got to be a justifiable level to it.
Yeah,
you know, it's not abuse, but a sharp clip around the ear was a good way to get your kids to pack it in and learn some discipline, learn to listen, and learn respect.
Well, it depends where it comes from. If it's a good parent, they're not doing it to abuse their child. They're doing it to try and teach them and the right and the wrong way of doing things, which is going to then help you later on in life. And now, because you can't give someone a clip around the ear because of like a handful of bad parents or teachers or whatever it might be, it's ruined the discipline for an entire generation now. Because of a few people.
That is a big problem. I think that's a huge... If I could change one thing about society, genuinely it would be this. Stop pandering and catering to the minorities, because that is genuinely one of the biggest issues facing our society at the minute. Now, one of the joking ones that me and my mates say about this, which is more jovial, is everywhere I go now, ordering food or drink, have you got any allergies? No, because I'd tell you if I did. Like, why does every time I go to the gym, David Lloyd, I'm atting you for this. Every single time, you know, they ask if you buy water. Have you got any allergies? Yeah, for water, for drinks, for anything. Every single time, Have you got any allergies? You got any allergies? You got any allergies? And it's everywhere. And I know it's sad, and yes, I'm going to sound really callous for saying this. One unfortunate event of a girl dying in a shop where the allergies weren't asked or catered for, and she passed away, and now everywhere has to ask about allergies all the time. But I just think the whole notion of it is ridiculous, because if you did have allergies, you'd tell someone you had allergies.
Yeah.
And if you don't know you've got an allergy, well, then you're not going to say anyway regardless. If you say, oh, have you got any allergies, and you don't know, you'd say no.
Well, it takes away the complete self-accountability for anything. Because it's like, well, it's someone else's fault. It's not, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have said. It's that, oh, well, you didn't tell me instead. So then you've created an entire, again, cohort of people that have just believed that it's not their fault, it's someone else's fault for not telling them, rather than just taking ownership yourself and being like, yeah, probably should have said about that, actually.
Again,
it's your own life. I know if I had a nut allergy, I'd be walking around with a sign.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just pissing me off now. Like, this whole situation of just, I mean, that's like the jovial one. That's a fun one. I remember, obviously, again, during the cough period where everything was all going a bit haywire. And I remember it was like, well, if you're within the age range of 0 to 60, there is a 99.9% chance you'll survive. But if you're over 60, then it goes all the way up to 3% or something silly. And so we had to lock down the entire country, and everybody's complaining about the cost of living at the minute. And everyone's forgotten that we completely halted our economy for 2 years to make way for this shit. Now, I completely understand on the other side of that, if it had been worse and if the virus was deadly and it could have been, there was need for lockdowns. But once we knew that that wasn't the case, and we were pandering to the minority element of society where they could have just taken the extra precautions or not gone outside instead of everybody else halting the entire economy, we wouldn't be as fucked as we are now. And again, same with allergies, same with everything else. It's like we are pandering to minorities, and then whether it's particular marginalised groups, and it's like, well, now all the footballers need to wear pride flags
Or kneel.
And again, I'm all for people supporting other people's and these marginalised people. I'm not here to oppress anyone, but I do genuinely believe that the people that are getting forgotten about is the masses, is the main people.
And we're seeing what happens now from that, and it's like, then similar with Andrew Tate, you push on one side and you get the pendulum flipping the other way, and then you get in a reaction.
Revolt is coming. And you can see it's true, but again, another one of those laws that they try to pass, it's like if you're part of a minority group, then you get a lesser sentence, and I don't know whether, I think that got abolished, but that was a big thing that was trying to get pushed through.
Yeah, well, we know in employment that if you've got a protected characteristic, and there's a list of them, then they get special privileges. In employment,
the whole of society is pandering to the marginalised. But back to the schooling system, bit of an off-tangent topic. I'm sure everyone will enjoy, but I think it is important because, again, at schools,
but it does start at schools.
No, exactly, but it's happening at schools. It is 100% happening at schools where, you can't say that word anymore, or we need to be inclusive and we need to cater to, we're now teaching this class about this particular minority group, and it's a certain sequence of alphabet letters that are the current mainstream that everyone's having to pander to. We had teachers, again, who we're friends with, who we've known for a long time, who have come in and had conversations with us and said that a certain child has now said that they identify as a different gender, and now everyone needs to call them, instead of Sam, it's Samantha. And then one of the other kids, who's 6 years of age, has called them Sam instead of Samantha, and the mom's come in going ballistic, saying that the child needs to be punished for misnaming their son or daughter, whichever pronoun was there at the time. But she said that it would change every week. So she'd come in on a Monday and go, I feel like Sam today, I need everyone to call me Sam. And then on Wednesday it would be, right, I feel like Samantha today, everyone needs to call me Samantha. And obviously, again, if that was my little boy, go back to the 3-strike rule, because there'd be a little back at home, and say what you want, and people are going to jump on me for that and say that it's an absolute disgrace. Now, it wouldn't be done out of malicious intent, but to be fair, what I've always thought if I had a son is I'm into my boxing, I'd get some boxing gloves on and I'd just have a little play and a little fun spar and sort of say, right, I just still feel like Sam after half an hour of boxing, or do you want to be Samantha again? And they'll probably go, oh, do you know what? I'm happy being Sam now.
Well, this is, I mean, gone back, not even, it's only something that's been possible in the past, 20, 30 years or something. It's a very recent, the whole of human history, no one's been able to, change their gender, up until, the past 30 years. I mean, there was stories coming out ages ago of kids saying that they thought they were cats, and it was like she wanted to be treated like a cat, and the teachers were like, I don't really know what to do here, and they were like, yeah, you just have to treat it like a cat then. And then Piers Morgan did the hilarious one where he was like, okay, well, tell you what, call me a two-spirit penguin then. And it's like, and then it's, well, now you've been ridiculous, and he's like, oh, hang on a minute, well, no, I think what you're saying is ridiculous. I'm just taking what you're saying to the extreme. I want to be a two-spirit penguin. And that's what I identify. And then he did another one. He was like, I want you to call me, or my pronouns, world's fittest man.
Yeah, world's sexiest man.
World's sexiest man, that was it. And it was like, and they were like, well, I'm not saying it. And I think someone actually did end up, okay, fine, I'll call you that then. He's like, okay, then. Call me that then.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to discipline, and again, children now are running rampant at schools. They're leading the schools because teachers have no ability to discipline, and parents have no ability to discipline, because otherwise it's the kids get taken off them in extreme cases. I've heard of close, the parental negligence of children getting taken off of parents, or being threatened to getting taken off of parents, because the parents have chosen to take their children out of school for a holiday during term time. And not only do they get a fine for it, if it's a continuous thing, they get literally Child Protective Services will go in and review and evaluate to potentially take their children away because it's child negligence, because they're preventing them from learning through their education. And that is the level it's getting to. And then so because there's no discipline, children are able to run riot and say, oh, well, I feel like this. Because children come out with crazy shit all the time. Because they're 5, they are children. So they are going to say wacky stuff. And they need their parents to be able to say, pack it in, you're a child, you don't know what you're talking about, you'll do as you're told. And if you don't do as you're told, there's a punishment. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah. And by the time they get to 18... whatever, do what you want, be who you want, do whatever you want, you're an adult. But up until that point, I mean, although saying that as a sidestep, I mean, for some reason now they can vote at 16, but, whatever. But, until you're 18 and an adult, you can't make your own decisions because you're not capable. Up front to vote.
Yeah, clearly. And I think obviously life's about stages and going through these things, but schooling is one of those things. They're your development stages, they're your early development stages, and they need to be right, they need to be correct. And I think one of the things that they should be doing at school is allowing children to follow their passions more, because again, when I was at school, there were certain subjects that you really have an affinity for and some that you just really don't like. And what I heard Jimmy Carr say, actually, it was really insightful. I thought it was a great way of doing things. Was if I was running schools, he'd create this methodology of really just asking the children what they enjoy, what lessons they like, what they want to do, and from there they can be then selected to go and double down on those subjects. But what we try and do at school at the minute is create this average score across the board, and it's like, well, you're getting an A in art and drama, so this is clearly a really creative young soul, young spirit who's very creative, loves art, wants to probably go into some form of creative design or some form of like drama, theatre, acting, whatever later in life. But instead of encouraging that, they're getting a D in geography, and so, or maths. And yeah, I can always understand English, I think, is the most important. I think being able to speak and write is very important. It always will be. Maths is really now being offset to technology. But they're getting a D in maths, but they hate maths and they love the creative side. But instead of encouraging the creative side and allowing them to double down on that, they say, right, you're good at that, or you're good enough at this already, so let's park that. Let's completely ignore this subject. Let's really hard focus on maths to get you to pass. We want to get you a C. I can't remember. Apparently all the grades have changed now. It's like 1 to 10 or something. I have no idea, but I think everybody will remember A's.
Because again, that was due to discrimination on people. Like apparently, like if you got an F, people were getting bullied because it was like an F. Whereas if they changed it to 1s and 2s, there was less, bullying to it or something nonsense like that. Apparently that was it.
Again, I wouldn't surprise me, but I think again, that's one of the biggest things that we need to encourage nowadays is people's passions. And if that is something that these children love, how are you going to get, you just know, you could say like, as a creative person, I'm not very creative. I'm more analytical, numbers and writing and text. I really like that. The creative side for me, it's I'm not really there. So drama and dance and art were my worst subjects.
Whereas they were my best.
Well,
and I still did bad. Well, they were better. No, I still did shit. But like I liked them the most. I still. But when you actually kind of like level up like the scale and find out where the problem lies, I actually think the teachers would prefer that kind of system. But when you go up, it's kind of like the schools get rated by, like, say, Ofsted, and the schools get funding from the government based upon the scores that they get. So they have to reach certain scores to get funding from the government. And if they don't get those certain levels, they won't get the funding. So, and the score is that Ofsted have to give, like, certain levels, and you have to pass all the certain subjects or you're not going to get the funding. So the problem lies in the whole system of it all, really, because it's like, top down. It's all wrong because the government's basically saying you won't get funding unless all the students do pretty well on all subjects. Whereas that whole thing needs to be changed. They need to be able to excel in, like we're saying, like the subjects they prefer.
It's a good point about the teachers, though, because again, if you've got a class full of children who are actively engaged and actively care about the subject, they're going to prefer their job and get better satisfaction because they've got a room full of people who care about what they're teaching. Whereas if I've got a drama teacher who's trying to teach me acting techniques, I'm there.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. I don't care. And so I'm going to be disruptive. I'm going to be unruly. I'm going to distract people. I'm going to reach out and lash out, and I'm going to be a pain because I don't want to be there because I don't like it. So you're making me do something that I don't like. I'm going to then disrupt it and ruin it for other people that are there. Whereas you've got a class that is engaged in the subject, then you're onto a winner, aren't you? But obviously they don't do that until you get a minor element of it in GCSEs where you start to select subjects, but it's not niched and refined enough, and you still have to do some of the other shit subjects. It's like, well, you have to, I remember, I don't know whether it's still the same, it's like you have to pick what's in the band. So you pick a lesson from band A lesson from band B, C, D, and then you kind of get a timetable that works amongst them. It just makes no sense. So that's one of the biggest changes that I'd certainly look at. And I think the other thing as well is having a more modern approach to the technology and the AI that's coming out, and start to make that as part of the curriculum, and just, or not even part of the curriculum where they have to learn it, but at least understand that it's there. So when kids ask these questions, like, why do I need to know about Pythagoras, or why do I need to know about that? The answer is, well, actually, you don't. AI will do it for you, so fuck it off. But yeah, right, let's end it there. Schooling, before he goes off on one, schooling is absolutely messed up, and something does need to happen. I think there's a few simple things that we can do, which is very simply allowing children to enjoy their passions more and doubling down on it. Parents, you need to do a better job as well. If your child has a passion for something, really drive it into them and allow them to push forward. And remember, kids, they're going to be so quick to dismiss things and move out of them. Be a bit stricter with them and make sure that you're pushing them to remain in it and stick at it a little bit longer. And the second thing is adding that discipline, which is obviously the second part, and making sure that just because they're 5 years old and telling you they don't like something, remember they are only 5. You are the adult. Use your head, not theirs. And hopefully, in some time soon, we can hope that we can sort this shit out and that we have a brighter future for the generations to come. And thanks very much for watching. Remember to like and comment, subscribe for seeing the next episode, and we'll catch you next Monday at 6 o'clock.